welcome to Hellish. I'm Daniel Whelan and I am Hell's receptionist. This is the waiting room, where damned souls are prepared for their afterlives. Before I send them off to do something close to the worst job they've ever done, I extract from them their infernal playlist, the 5 songs that will soundtrack their torment forevermore. Assisting me is Satan's T-Boy, Gopher, Factotum, and the man responsible for whispering made-up facts into the ears of National Trust volunteers, Alex Gale. Hello, Alex.
Hello, it is I. Yes, this castle was originally made of pastry.
Perfect.
Winston Churchill beat a manservant to death with that vase, and so on.
That kind of thing, it drives me up the wall. I am so glad that someone is there putting these little bits of nonsense into their heads. It's doing literally the devil's work.
My pleasure.
Okay, so you know how much I like to keep our damned souls waiting, but I can see that the shade behind you is looking particularly impatient. Who hast thou brought hither?
Well, I have the English actor and screenwriter Luke Neal. Luke has appeared in a lot of TV and film projects, including Star Wars: The Last Jedi, Krypton, SSGB, Gunpowder, and even Pudsey the Dog, the movie. In 2020, Luke wrote the award-winning miniseries Des, which starred David Tennant as real-life serial killer Dennis Nilsen.
Luke Neal, welcome to Hell.
Thank you, I guess.
Well, it's nice of you to come. Thank you very much. Des has obviously been a fantastic success, and I want to hear all about that and the creation of it. You won this Radio Times Award for Best Drama. Yeah. You must be pretty gutted to be in hell. What have you done to deserve this?
Well, if I'm in hell, I'm guessing Dennis Nilsen's here as well, somewhere. And
almost certainly.
He's gonna probably ask me for some kind of residuals. So, yeah. Fortunately, he was long past when the thing came out. Otherwise, I would have probably got a letter from him. So, I'm very happy about that. But he's probably got a letter somewhere ready to give me in hell.
As soon as you get to hell, that makes sense. So, before you wrote Des, you had this great career as an actor. You know, you turned up in Star Wars and all this kind of cool stuff. Are you still acting now, or are you doing both?
No. I realised that to be the writer I wanted to be, or thought I should be, it needed a singular focus. So I kind of swapped one for the other. So since I started writing Des, after it got greenlit by ITV, I kind of let the acting go.
Okay. So I wanted to ask about that. So how did Des come about? So obviously there must have been a point before it was greenlit that you were working on it. Did you just decide one day I really want to tell this story? Or did someone come your way and say, can you tell this story?
No, I mean, Des took 6 years to make.
Wow.
From original conception. I simply put, I lived near where he was arrested 30 years previously, and I watched a documentary, not knowing it was so close, realised that it was just down the street, and became interested in this case that I hadn't really heard of. And the more I read about it, the more I looked at it and looked at the documentaries, I realised that there was a story there to be told in a dramatic format. And through blind ignorance, kind of thought, well, I'm the person to write it. I've never written anything that's been made before, but I think I could write it. So at that point, I didn't feel like I wanted to write it alone. And so I started writing it with a pal of mine, another actor of the name of Al Weaver. And then after the first draft, Al decided that it wasn't for him, and he left. And then I went on it alone, and then a few years later, Lewis Arnold came on it. But Lewis was on it for 5 years as well. So this is
the director.
This is the director,
yeah.
And he'd just come out of NFTS, National Film and Television School, and I'd gone to see a short film festival because a mate of mine had made a short film, and his short film was before my mate's, and I was just blown away by it. So I I kind of contacted him and was like, I'd love to meet you. And he met with me, although he'd kind of already started working. I mean, this guy's a genius, bless him. Bless him, he's going to be so happy that I called him a genius, and he's going to hold it over me forever. What I realised is he turned up to tell me why he wasn't going to do the project. And but I just started talking about what I wanted to do with the project because I thought he was interested. And after like a 5-minute diatribe of what I wanted to do with it, he was like, yeah, so none of that's in the script. And I was like, ooh, okay. Right, okay. And he was like, because the thing that you just said, I want to make that. So let's rework the script. And so we sat with each other for a few months, and I rewrote the script with his notes, and it slowly became what is, a version of what's on the TV, what we shot 5 years later.
How did you? It's a difficult subject matter, isn't it? Because I mean, there's been not only your drama, there was also another hugely successful drama about a serial killer released a couple of years ago on Netflix about Jeffrey Dahmer.
Mm-hmm.
They were both really popular, but the Dahmer series got a bit of criticism for its treatment of like the victims, but your series didn't get any of that criticism. It was sort of lauded for, treating people with respect. How did you manage that?
Very early on, I mean, it was a difference in approach. Very early on, Lewis and I, the more research we did on Nilsen himself, the less interested we became about the man and more interested in the response of the crimes of Dennis Nilsen. And very early on, we made a judgment call, which we stuck to, despite wants from exterior forces throughout the 6 years to change this, was we were never going to show a murder, because only 2 people knew what happened, and one unfortunately was killed, and the other is a pathological liar. So if we started showing his point of view, we knew we were going down a path where we were going to get it wrong. And so what came up is we decided that actually the points of view could only come from these 2 other men, Peter J. and Brian Masters. And we realized that our way into Nilsen and the workings of his mind, or the perceived workings of his mind, had to come through another person. And it meant that the victims never felt, I kind of think, used or violated as a piece of gory detail to a bigger story. They are the story. Dennis Nilsen's not the story. Our response to Dennis Nilsen is the story. Our society's ability to allow a certain population, whether it be because of drugs, whether it be because of bad living situations, whether it be because of homelessness, allowed these people to go, and their deaths to go unnoticed for 5 years. And that's something that we were more interested in than what Dennis Nilsen did with his day. And I think Dahmer went at it a different way, and I understand the fascination we have with serial killers, because they do things that we think we would never do, and they do things and they act in a way that we find abnormal. And that can always go into glamorous or sensationalizing, and that was never our intent. We never wanted to do that. We never had. We by the time that we made Des, we were so bored of Dennis Nilsen and his ramblings, which they are. Like I read his diaries, I read his autobiography, or excerpts of his autobiography, which he wrote in prison, which was a 1,200-page book, which was basically saying why he was the real victim of Dennis Nilsen.
Jeez, how did you get hold of this? I'm assuming this was never published.
It was it was never published. It was just, I think it got banned by the Home Office, and then there was a person that was allowed to, and he released excerpts, so we read all of that and to see if it was helpful. But we also had this amazing resource in Brian, because Brian gave us the rights to his book, which was the book that he wrote as Nilsen was on remand.
Is this Killing for Company?
Is Killing for Company. That's right. And so Brian was so helpful and so useful, and sat down and patient and regaled the story that we had in the book, but also what happened outside of the book and his meetings with him and what he was like and this became the framework of creating this character. But and realizing that this man was so inconsistent, was someone who would change his story within 30 seconds, but could probably pass a lie detector test, even if the story was exactly the opposite to what it was 10 minutes ago. And so we realized that was the framework of the show. Has to be about these two people who are desperate for answers of either side of the spectrum. You know, Peter J wants to know who the names of the victims are. He wants to know what has happened. And Brian is going on the quest to discover why this happened. But their only resource is this vacuum of morality. And so we became interested in how much of their own morality gets sucked in order to get the answers they crave, in order to do the good work that is trying to give answers to the public of why and what Dennis Nilsen did.
Mm-hmm. It's a fascinating dilemma. I think that's what makes it such a compelling piece of drama. As you are, so you've got you and Lewis are on board. You're developing this thing. At some point, I assume that you decide it's ready to start shopping around to TV stations, something like that.
Yeah, it's a little bit less linear than that, in the sense of, so one day, we shopped it around, and a lot of people had said, "Great, love it, really great script, love to meet them to see what the next project is," because no one wanted to do it. For years, nobody wanted to do it. And then I got an email out of the blue. I was in Los Angeles at the time, and it was from David Tennant. And David Tennant said, I've been given this script. I'd love to play this part if you're interested in me playing it. And I was just like, I have no idea what has just happened. Yeah, okay. And it was a friend of mine at a dinner party had started talking to him. I don't know how Dennis Nilsen came up. And she said, "Oh, well, my friend's written this TV show about Dennis Nilsen." And then, unbeknownst to me, had sent it to him the next day. He'd read it and said, "Yeah, I want to play it." Wow. And so he came on 4 years before we made it. So he was on it for a very long time, helping kind of develop it, giving his own notes, becoming an executive producer on it. And then that made it a lot easier, because with projects that are difficult to make, you get someone like David, and they go from being problematic to an interesting project to see, because then everyone could go, "Oh, David playing that part, I can imagine that." And he was amazing. He came into the room with us when we pitched it to ITV, and because it was at the BBC before it was up with ITV, and it got commissioned by the BBC, and then they had two projects that were, they had that, and they had the Stephen Port, which became Four Sons. It was called something else when I think it was called Four Sons now.
Yeah, and the one with Stephen Merchant in it.
That's right, yeah. And they decided to go with that one, and so we got put into turnaround, and then we took it to ITV, and ITV took it on and greenlit it, and then we didn't look back.
Well, so one of the questions I was going to ask you is, when you're writing this part, it seems like David Tennant would be the only candidate, but that is obviously not the way round it happened. Or did you have in your wildest dreams this idea that, God, wouldn't David Tennant be good at this?
David was the only person we wanted to play it.
Right.
Like, he looks so like him.
Yeah.
And so, we never really talked about anyone else. And we were like, what are we going to say to his agent? How are we going to approach him? What are we going to say? Well, look, we probably need a green light we probably need a production company at first
Right.
and then suddenly this email comes out of the blue. And it just so happened that about a week before, Lewis had just got a job to direct an episode of Broadchurch. So then when he went on to the job, David was like, you're the director that's going to direct Des. And so then they started a working relationship on Broadchurch, which meant that they had a language when they came onto Des. I think they've worked together. Well, I think they've worked together since. I'm sure they have. And it just meant that there was a lot of trust there. But still, the one worry I had about David, if I'm honest, was he's so likable. And he's so charming and so charismatic and kind of warm in his presence. I was like, I don't know if he can. He's also an amazing actor, but I was worried. And then the first day of filming, I watched it through the monitor, and I was just like, oh my God! Like, he's like turned. He just like. I realised that all of those things that I just said were on a dial, which he could just turn off, and he put them all to 0, and his eyes were just so cold, and I was like, "Oh, we're gonna get a special performance out of this guy," and we did, and we did, yeah.
You did. When I was reading up about this in preparation to meet you, I knew that David Tennant had been nominated for a BAFTA, and it was his first BAFTA, and I was like, well, it must have been for this. And it wasn't. It was for Good Omens. I was like, what happened there? Like, that's mad.
And for Good Omens as well.
I know. He did win an Emmy for it, though.
Oh, right. Okay. That's good.
He did win an international Emmy for this. So he won a national television award. But yeah, he didn't get nominated for a BAFTA, which I'm not bitter about.
You should be. I think the whole country would understand if you were bitter about that, because it is an incredible performance.
I think it's baffling that someone of David's ability and talent has only got one BAFTA nomination, and that was last year. I think that tells a bigger story, which is I don't know how many performances that deserved a nomination, if not a win of some kind of award, and the fact that he only got one last year, I just find baffling.
It's very strange, especially for this. But yeah, it is an incredible piece of work. Okay, so in a moment, we're going to get to your Infernal playlist, so the 5 tracks you will meet in hell. But first, Tracy from HR needs a little help in allocating you something torturous to do. So she would like to know what the worst job you have ever done is.
The worst job I ever did. I, for a long time, went into schools and taught children to play Shakespeare, and
theatre in education sort of stuff.
Kind of, but I would just come with a suitcase full of colourful clothes and capes and plastic swords, and I would go, "You're going to be the characters," and then I would put and I would tell the story. I'd narrate the story of whether it be like Midsummer Night's Dream or Hamlet or Macbeth, and I would make them be the characters and also try desperately and in vain to get 7-year-olds to speak Shakespeare. And I used to do it all around the country, which actually I look at now and I go, oh, well, I've kind of been to every village in the country because I did it for about 4 years. But it was pretty arduous that time.
At least 7-year-olds, I think, like at least they're going to be up for like getting dressed up and stuff.
Yeah, maybe 14-year-olds would be harder. But I suppose by 14, they've maybe picked drama, as their GCSE or something. But maybe 12 is the worst because you got those
worst
who
is
do
that.
Not care.
Yeah, sorry. The worst is that kind of that 12-year-old who now is like, why am I here? Because we would go from the age of like 6 to like 13. And if you got a 13-year-old, they all just sat there. And also, they didn't want to have to put a cape on in front of their mates. So you'd have to pick, instead of like, with the 7-year-olds at least, you go, who wants to play this guy? And they'd go, me. And you go, great, and you put it on. With a 12-year-old, no one would say, no one would volunteer, and then you had to kind of go, you.
And of course, if you pick one who's perhaps a bit, I don't know, like who might get picked on, and then you put a cape on them in front of the whole class. This is like you are chief bully.
Yes. Yeah. Oh God.
But you have no way of knowing. That's the
no, exactly. That's the bloody hell.
I had because I wrote a children's book, and so I went into a lot of schools to do talks about that, and I met a writer on that kind of kidlit circuit, and he told me that he absolutely refuses to do anything after first term first year in high school. He's like, I don't know, I'm not going. I'll do first term first year, and anything after that, it's a waste of my time, because they're much tougher crowds. They're
awful.
Yeah,
I can tell which of my son's friends are going to end up in prison.
Would you like to name them on the podcast?
If you beep them out.
No, I can't be bothered to do that, so don't do that. Okay, so we are now going to start talking about your Infernal playlist, Luke. So the first track is a song you used to like that you are now embarrassed by.
That is Richard Marx's Hazard.
I swear I left her by the river. I swear I left her safe and sound. I need to make it to the river and leave this old Nebraska town.
Okay, Alex, what have you got for us on Hazard by Richard Marx?
Hazard by Richard Marx. It was released in 1992. It was the second single from Marx's third studio album, which went by the name of Rush Street. It made the top 10 on the US Billboard 100 and got to number 3 in the UK, and even made number 1 in Australia. The hazard featured in the song is a small Nebraska town whose residents were so pleased with the name check that they invited Marx to be Grand Marshal at the Sherman County, Nebraska 4th of July Parade in 1993, which he accepted.
Okay. What year was this again, the original the
92
song?
it came out.
It came out in 92, okay. Okay, so Luke, tell us about the time that you liked this song.
Well, this question, I could have just thrown a stone and found a song, because I was a very, very emotional, I think probably 11, 12, 13-year-old. And I somehow, I don't know if I bought it, I probably did. I got the Love album too. And this was on the Love album too.
That's a compilation album, is it, of love songs?
It is, yeah, and it had this and Eternal Flame and the Bangles, and it had The Power of Love by Jennifer. And I just used to listen to these songs, but this one was my favourite song, like my favourite song growing up. And I just used to listen to it. I used to love the story of it, because it's this sweeping story of this outcast, this outsider who finds the love of his life, and then his love of the love of his life goes missing, and he's the chief suspect, and he needs to leave. And it was just this pining song that I would put on. You know, when you had these hi-fi players that you could put repeat once, and I used to put repeat once on that CD, and I used to listen to it, and I was convinced that at some point I was going to write the film of Hazard.
Oh,
you still could.
I mean, there's still time. There is still time. One of the things I will say about this song is that it doesn't end. There is no ending. Like
No.
you find
they
out.
don't find her or anything,
No,
do they?
No. You find out so in the first verse you don't know that Mary goes missing. In the second verse you find out that she's gone missing, and then in the bridge he complains a bit that, oh, this is just my luck, I'm gonna have to run away, and then you never find out. There's no twist or anything in the tale. It just stops. So,
But if you
maybe.
listen to it as well and you find it, like you realise that he's made Mary's apparent death all about him.
Yes.
Like
Especially in that middle eight at the end.
There's no, oh my God, the love of my life may be dead. It's now they're blaming it on me.
Yeah.
Like, it's a completely selfish response. And it's baffling in that he's kind of like you say, there's that self-pitying like bridge where he's like, oh, well, now my life's ruined.
Yeah.
And you're like, Mary might be dead.
Yeah.
She's
We
got the worst.
never find out even if she is dead. We don't know.
Well,
We don't know if they've found her body or anything.
No, maybe she just left because he's a selfish bastard.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
He's a psychopath. That's why she ran away. Because he has those bad eyes.
but am I right? Am I right in saying, and that this is something I learned a few years ago, that he picked Hazard because it kind of it had the right amount of syllables.
Exactly that.
But there isn't a river in Hazard.
No.
Ah.
No, he rang sort of, the Nebraska County or Nebraska State Tourist Board and said, I need a town. 2 syllables, give me a list. So they send him a list and Hazard, that'll do. But it doesn't even say Hazard in the song, does it?
It does, yeah.
Does it?
Yeah, in the first verse, he says, I was 7 years old when my mother came to Hazard.
Oh, well,
Yes,
first
yes.
There it is.
And even then, the folks in town said with suspicious eyes, that boy's not right, or something like that.
Yeah,
I know
that's
all
it.
the words. Like,
I mean, Hazard is a good name for it, though, because like
amazing.
that's a good title. That is good.
It is.
And I got to be honest, I still quite like it for all its faults.
He's had 14 number ones.
What?
As a writer and performer, Richard Marx. So I presume he's written songs for other people, but I hadn't heard of him until about 5 years ago. When,
Really?
because his big hit,
Right Here Waiting.
Right Here Waiting.
Yeah.
For You. I always just thought that was Bryan Adams.
Oh.
So it's like Bruce Springsteen said, I don't want you anymore. Go and see Brian. And he's gone and seen Brian, and he's gone, I'm going to show Bruce. and he's taken all of the advice from Bryan Adams and all of his childhood from Bruce Springsteen and gone, I'm going to show Bruce. And then Bruce has never listened to the song.
No, there's no way that Bruce has a positive opinion about this. There's no way. Of course you would. Like, if some clown with silly hair turns up and is basically ripping you off, of course you're not going to stand for it. I did read a good tweet from Richard Marx. Do you remember when? Of course you remember this. Everyone remembers this. When Will Smith
9/11.
when Will Smith hit Chris Rock, the second biggest thing that happened in America.
Yes.
After 9/11. When Will Smith hit Chris Rock, Richard Marx tweeted, "For a fucking hair joke, I would be doing life in prison."
Fair play.
Which I think is spot on. Well done, Richard Marx. Okay, so that is track 1. We're off to a good start. So track 2 on your Infernal playlist is a song that is universally adored, You Cannot Stand.
It is Daft Punk All Around the World.
Okay, can we have some song facts, please, Alex?
Well, it was released in 1997. It was the second single from Daft Punk's debut album, Homework. Massive hit. Got to the top of many dance charts around the world, but even got to number 5 on the UK singles chart. And in 2011, the NME placed it at number 21 on their strangely specific list, the 150 best tracks of the last 15 years. And in 2024, the American edition of the Gentleman's Digest Esquire magazine placed it at number 5 on their list of 50 best songs of the 90s.
Wow. Okay, so what is your problem with this then, Luke?
My problem with this song is that clip that you just played could have been from anywhere in the song. And it is a 7-minute song that does the same thing over and over again. Now, when you first hear it, you go, oh, I like this beat. This is quite fun. And you go, oh, I like that weird kind of Daft Punkian vocals that you're doing. And then you go, okay, this is 7 minutes of exactly the same thing. And then you hear it incessantly for like 10 years and you go, please, I want to hear the version that goes somewhere.
Yeah.
It's an infuriating song.
It absolutely fails as a piece of dance music. Like there's no build up. The only breakdown is that for a while there are less instruments while he's going around the world, and that is it. My initial thought was like, oh well, everyone likes that song, which is obviously what we asked you to was the brief, which is what we asked you for. I don't think I'd ever sat and listened to the whole thing all the way through before. And when I did, it was like, oh, I mean, this is obviously why he can't stand it. Of course, this is really
at 3
dull.
minutes. It would be better, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the 7 minutes.
I would even go so far as to say what this is an advertising jingle. Like it's a great advertising jingle.
It feels like you're selling washing machines, I suppose, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's got one of those sort of.
It just does the same thing, and you just go, "Oh right, I'm in a time warp for 7 minutes," and it was at a time, in '97 where the radio played, and it was just everywhere, and I felt like I was going insane, which is maybe what Daft Punk wanted. Maybe it was a social experiment to see if we could go insane. And
they are French, aren't they? They're up to that sort of stuff, the French.
They are.
I mean, I do wonder if maybe they set out that it was supposed to be a joke. That was supposed to be how can we take this music that is incredibly popular now and distill it to just basically the same 8 bars for 8 minutes or whatever. And maybe that's what their intention was. You're
saying it was a comment on the dystopian state of dance music.
Maybe, or just that they were taking the piss.
Right.
They're just going let's see if we can just what can we get away with this?
I hope that's the case. I think it feels like they had written this entire song. They had sent it to their music producer, but it got chewed up in the mail, and they just had this 8 bars, and they got a phone call like the next day saying, we love this song, and they were like, oh, that's great. And then they heard it back and they were like, guys, it's just the first 8 bars, and they were like, it's going to be a hit.
Yeah.
And then they've had to play this for the last 30 years, knowing that there is a great song that no one will hear.
I like the idea that the original is like Richard Marxian story song.
He starts off around the world, but then he comes home and finds his first love, and
he finds that he had to travel the world to find out where home is.
It's the only song ever written that follows the Joseph Campbell's Hero of a Thousand Faces moral journey, and it's never going to be listened to, unfortunately.
And all we get is Around the World, and maybe that's all we deserve. So when we're talking, we're on the subject of things that are universally adored, and I'm gonna take a sidestep to something that is pretty much universally hated, and that is, I'm sure you can guess, Pudsey the Dog the movie.
Oh.
So, for people who don't know what this is, Britain's Got Talent produced a winner which was a dancing dog act.
Oh, that's Pudsey.
That's Pudsey the Dog. And they made a movie about the dancing dog, and you are the romantic lead in it.
Yeah.
Is the dog male or female?
Dog was male.
Dog's not the dog's not the romantic.
This is the great thing about it. The dog's hardly in it. Okay. Like, it is mostly not the dog.
The dog had very strict working hours. So It is mostly us trying to make a film around that doesn't look like a cash cow.
Right.
And it's I tell you what, the story I can tell you about that is I did it when I was in need of some money.
Right.
And it was I got offered the job that I auditioned for it. I said yes to the audition. And then from the time that I finished filming to the time that it had its premiere, I was like, do you know what? Maybe it's not that bad. Like, I know there's a scene where I'm a baby and it's a baby with my face implanted on it. But do you know what? Maybe, just maybe. And so when I went to the premiere, I was like, do you know what? Maybe it's not for me, but maybe there's. And I watched it, and I was like, oh, this is bad. This is really bad. So I called my girlfriend at the time, and I just said, we need to go away. And we need to go away. We have to leave the country.
Like Jason
we need
Bourne.
to go. And so by the time that night, we booked a flight to Morocco, and we're going to spend a week in Morocco. And I turned off my phone. I turned off the Wi-Fi. On the Thursday, I got back to, do you know what? Maybe I'm being harsh on it. Maybe it's because I'm in it, and maybe that I'm seeing it through lenses, and maybe it will find an audience, and maybe actually people will love it. There's lots of stuff that I don't like that people love. So I turn on my Wi-Fi, and I click on the first review that comes up, and it's the Guardian review.
Yeah, Peter Bradshaw,
and it says Pudsey the Dog, the movie, 1 star. A shame on everyone involved.
Yeah, I can quote Peter Bradshaw. She says, watching this movie, I was overwhelmed with 3 emotions: boredom, embarrassment, and chiefly shame on behalf of everyone involved. I've not seen this. I'm going to have to you didn't get to meet Simon Cowell, did you?
No, because Simon Cowell, bless his little heart, waited to grant his involvement in it and watched the first edit and went, you can't do that. You can't have me in it. You can't use my name.
I did wonder why he wasn't in the credits.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, Olivia Colman's a voice in it.
What a cast.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Jessica Hines, John Sessions.
God bless his soul.
When you are making this thing, so nobody ever sets out to make a bad film or a bad anything, right? I truly believe that people, no one's going, you know what, let's make this really terrible. But as it's happening, are you aware of what is happening? Are you all talking to each other going like, oh my God, I can't believe we said yes to this?
To be completely frank, the one person that I had conversations about how bad it was, you'll be pleased to know, was Jessica knew what we were in.
Right.
I think when Jess said yes to the movie, I think she thought it was a Children in Need project.
Oh.
And then found out that Pudsey was not the bear, and she was not going to get kudos for doing work for charity, that she was actually going to have to do a film with a dancing dog that, like, God bless Pudsey, but he had one move. A bit like Daft Punk, he just stood on his hind legs.
And the film really knows that it only has the one move. And they use it a lot.
There was a dark time in filming because I learned to drive really late. So I just passed my test. I was probably like 30 at the time, and I just passed my test. And I just passed my test because I'd been offered a part in On the Road, the Walter Sallis, the Kerouac, Walter Sallis directed movie. And they went, you can drive, right? And I was like, no. And they went, you've got 2 weeks to learn how to drive. And then by that 2 weeks, they'd already recast me. So but I'd learned to drive, and so there was a driving scene in this movie. I drive this Jeep, and one of the first days, they were like, so what you've got to do is you just got to spin the Jeep around, and like Pudsey's running after you, and you've got to turn it. And I was like, okay, cool. And then Pudsey turned up, and I was like, surely I'm going to do the car stunt, as I call it. It was just turning a car. It was just turning a car. But surely they're going to do that without Pudsey in the shot. No, you need a wide. And I was like, I'm going to run over the dog.
Oh, God.
I'm going to be the guy that kills Pudsey. And I would have definitely gone to hell. I would definitely be here in hell if I'd have killed Pudsey the dog. But that's it. The other thing is, Pudsey the Dog, the movie, is the only movie I know that has 2 thes in it.
It has what?
He has 2 thes in the title.
Yeah.
Pudsey the Dog, the movie.
The movie. That is rare occurrence.
Oh, that's a good bit of trivia. Oh,
Desperately trying to think of another one there.
Did the ever make a movie? The movie. That would be three. Three there's. Okay, well, so I should say that it does have 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is rare.
And very well deserved.
Yes, I would agree. Miriam E. gave the review of rip-off of the Garfield movie, but just dogs and their mouths don't even move. So you can't. It just feels very cheap. That's
She's difficult to please, though, Miriam.
Yeah,
she is.
Miriam E's high standards of like the Garfield movie. It doesn't reach those heights of the Garfield
and
movie.
he gave The Godfather 3 stars. So.
3 stars. Yeah, his mouth doesn't even move.
No.
So
very good.
So we're nearly halfway through. So it's time now for all of the non-paying damned to hear some adverts. The paying damned, our Patreon supporters, will instead get to hear who the artist Luke will meet in hell is. If you would like to be privy to this, no doubt explosive information, then head over to patreon.com/hellishpod, and for the cost of 1 Mars bar a week, you'll get access to the cornucopia of extended ad-free episodes of Hell's greatest podcast, which is this one. Hello, everyone. Sorry to interrupt the episode. Well, I'm not sorry, really. I just wanted to let you know about a few ways you can keep us on the road to hell. The first is nice and cheap. Like, subscribe, follow, award us 5 stars, write a review, tell all your friends and enemies. We're at HellishPod on social media, apart from Instagram, where we are Hellish_pod. The more visible the podcast is, the more episodes we'll be able to make. The second is if you want to tip us, you can go to coffee.com/hellishpod to throw us a few coins, either just because you're nice or because you want to try bribing your way out of hell. That's coffee.com/hellishpod, ko-fi.com/hellishpod. We workshop that name ourselves in hell just to make it very awkward for all podcasters who are asking for tips. The last one is to subscribe to our Patreon. You'll get longer, ad-free episodes. You'll get access to our 2 pilots. Plus, there's a bunch of other bonus stuff for higher tiers, including the chance to make a cameo appearance on a future episode. That's at patreon.com/hellishpod. Now, back to Hellish. Welcome back to Hellish. We're getting straight into the nitty-gritty now as we ask screenwriter Luke Neal for a track that reminds him of a hard time in his life.
Yeah, that is Chandelier by Sia.
Okay, Alex, can you tell us something about Chandelier?
A little bit. It was the lead single on the Australian singer-songwriter Sia's 6th album, which is called 1,000 Forms of Fear. It was released a decade ago in 2014. This song made the top 5 on the charts of 20 different countries, and it got as high as number 8 in America, selling over 2 million copies in the process. Sia has written songs for an awful lot of other people, including Beyonce, Kylie Minogue, Flo Rida, and Rihanna. In fact, before she released this record, writing songs for other people was Sia's main focus. But after she made this breakthrough, she tried to retain anonymity by using stand-ins for videos and wearing masks and wigs when appearing in public, apparently.
Oh. Okay, so Luke, tell us about this bad time that Sia recalls.
Well, I'd like to say first that this is a banging tune. I love this tune. And I just think it's a great song. I think I'm a massive fan of Sia and her music. But this song came out in 2014, as you said. And at that point, I was in Los Angeles. And I was going to audition. I had just signed with an agent and a manager by telling them how big Halo Nightfall was going to be and how I was going to be the next movie star. and I was partying too much. I'd just come out of a breakup of a long-term partner, and I just kind of buried all that and gone, it doesn't matter what pain I'm in, it will be okay if I become famous. And and so, not that I was in a bad time there, but whenever I was driving to auditions or driving anywhere, this song was playing on the radio all the time, and I loved it. And it was just the one time where I could release the pain. And I look back at that time now and see how unhappy I was and how unstable I was. And what's interesting is recently, I know it came out a few years ago, I think it came out in 2020, but Damien Rice did a version of this, and it's a much more slowed down version, and you hear the words instead of you hearing the song. And I realised that the lyrics of the song were exactly what I was going through at the time, but I was listening to it as a dance song or a pop song rather than listening to the words. And so whenever I hear this song, it just takes me back to that 2014, that kind of fall of 2014, where my life was unraveling, but I was denying it.
So do you mind me asking how you got out of it? So you're unraveling. How did you correct the tailspin?
I don't think quite, like, to be honest, in some ways I didn't create the tailspin until I let go of acting, which helped, and I let go of that idea of where I stopped wanting to be what I thought was a successful actor, which was a famous actor. There's the horrible reality of actors is you can do a lot of work, and I look back and I see I've got quite a few credits, but you don't make a huge amount of money from it a lot of the time. It's going to get worse. It's probably got worse now, and invariably, some of your friends will become a lot more successful, and a lot of my friends have become hugely successful actors. And as much as you want to be happy for them, the jealousy and the mirroring of your own failure comes in, and that comparison. And I think starting to become and finding a new passion in the writing probably helped. And it's the best thing I've ever done.
Good. Well, we'll still be playing it to you in hell, so
yeah, thanks.
Hopefully you are going to be reminded of this horrible time. But I'm glad you're over it now.
Thank you.
We are going to try and make it worse for you when you get into hell itself. So, right. Track 4 is a track you hate by an artist you love. So who's this?
This is Dreams by Fleetwood Mac.
Okay, Alex, hit me with some Dreams, please.
It was written and sung by Stevie Nicks. Dreams features on the band's legendary 1977 album Rumours. It was, in fact, the record's second single, and it got to number 1 on the US Billboard chart. At the time of writing and recording the album, Stevie Nicks and bandmate Lindsey Buckingham, they were in the process of ending their 8-year-long relationship. And according to Stevie Nicks, the song took 10 minutes to write, possibly on a piano owned by Sly Stone of Sly and the Family Stone.
Okay, so let's start with your love of Fleetwood Mac, Luke. Where does that come from?
I think my dad loved Fleetwood Mac, so I heard it a lot growing up. But then I had a kind of hiatus period, and then in my adulthood, I kind of discovered it. And I think it was probably around the same time as the Sia thing, but a bit later. And I just fell in love with their music, their range from amazing ballads or rock to absolute pop. they went into the 80s and still made great music, but in the guise of 80s music. And I think Lindsey Buckingham is just an insanely good guitarist. And if you listen to the Dance, the live album, his solos are just insane. It's got a great, like, I just love 99% of their songs.
And then it comes to this one, Dreams, which is, it's one of the popular ones.
It's one of the big ones. One of the ones most people know, isn't it?
It is probably the one. So when anybody goes, oh my God, you're like, because there used to be a period of my life where all I wanted to listen to was Fleetwood Mac. And so around my friendship group, there's this thing where people are like, well, all you listen to is Fleetwood Mac. I mean, that's slightly outdated now. But so they'd be like, let's play a song for Luke. He loves Fleetwood Mac, and it would always be this one. and I'd be like, oh yeah, this one. I don't like this one.
Guys.
This is the one that, because if I had for a time I was living somewhere where it had a record player and it had the Rumours album. And you can't fast forward this one. Whenever I'm listening to Rumours, if I decide that I wanted to listen to the whole album, which I would recommend, it's a phenomenal album, I would just always skip this one. I mean, I don't need this one. But on a record player, you can't. You just got to sit through it and go, I wish they'd have just put something else on here. Like, if you're ever going through a breakup, Rumours is a brilliant album. I was lucky enough to see them, but unfortunately, when I went to see them a couple of years ago when they were in Wembley, a friend of mine got me tickets very kindly, and it was amazing. But I was so sad because it was Lindsay's not in the band anymore, and it was the lead guitarist from the Heartbreakers who was playing them, and then it was Neil Finn, which was amazing because Neil Finn sung a couple of Crowded House tracks, which was incredible.
That's interesting.
They were supported by the Proclaimers. Is the Proclaimers? No, not the Proclaimers. The Pretenders.
The Pretenders, yeah.
Chrissy Hynde.
That would be a different story. With the
by the way, Chrissy Hynde's voice is exactly the same, and I was blown away by her, and that was amazing. But I couldn't help, and I know this sounds horrible, I couldn't help sitting there going, I'm having a great time, but I wish this was 1977.
I kind of wake up and feel like that.
I saw them in 2015 when it was all the original five.
Oh.
Not the original five, but the big five. And it was like a lifetime ambition. I was like, I hope that one day they are together, that I can see the five, the Fleetwood Mac five. And it was great, and I had a great time. And even so, you kind of still think, I wish I'd have been alive to see them. I think that's like with a lot of bands you get into a bit too late, that unless you're kind of in on the ground floor, you're going to be seeing them in an Enorma Dome somewhere that, and you're probably going to be seeing like a session musician and like three of the good ones or whatever.
Yeah.
That's just the way it is, unfortunately. Okay, so your time in the waiting room is drawing to a close. But before you go, we need to make sure all of our earworms are fed and watered. So to that end, we would like a track which, once stuck in your head, you can never get out.
So I've picked two.
Okay.
And I've picked the new Gillette song, the new version of it. I can't even remember the guy's name. Tom Grennan or something. Is that right?
Yeah.
And I'm Just Ken.
Okay, well, let's have a listen to those two then. Here we go.
Father to son, doing what you've always done. Gillette's the best a man can get. Just Ken and I'm enough, and I'm great at doing stuff. Hey, check me out, yeah, I'm just Ken.
Okay, so Alex, I hope you've got double song facts prepared for us.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good. Okay, let's hear it.
Advertising whizzes decided in 2023 to re-record the classic Gillette advert jingle with the English singer and pop star Tom Grennan. For reasons unknown, but likely to include the low costs associated with digital distribution, this jingle was released as an extended 61-second single in the summer of 2024. I'm Just Ken is a song performed by the Canadian actor Ryan Gosling for the 2023 film Barbie. It was written and produced by Mark Ronson of Amy Winehouse and various other things fame, and his regular writing collaborator Andrew Wyatt. Gillette introduced its longtime slogan, "The Best a Man Can Get," during a commercial first aired during Super Bowl 23 in 1989. The jingle was written by singer-songwriter Jake Holmes, who is also the composer of the "Aren't You Hungry for Burger King Now" song from 1981, amongst many others, which earned him the nickname Jingle Jake. In 2010, perhaps with an eye on his retirement, he sued Led Zeppelin and won substantial damages and credit as the songwriter of the Zepp hit Dazed and Confused.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I kind of feel like I want to hear more about that story. I don't suppose you've got anything, have you?
No.
Oh,
That's as much as I've got for you.
Okay, so Luke, how have these become entwined in your mind?
There was a point this year where I'm Just Ken is everywhere. It's on every single news feed, so it would get into my head. And the only thing that would take I'm Just Ken out of my head was on a Saturday afternoon at 12:30 when I watched the first game. Tom Grennan would start to sing the Gillette, and then that would replace it. And so then I would just be like, okay, so from Saturday afternoon till probably Monday night to Tuesday morning, I would have the Gillette song.
Right.
And then the only thing that would take that out of it would be I'm Just Ken. And then I would have from Tuesday night till Saturday morning, I would have I'm Just Ken. And they would just live rent-free in my head for months.
I was a bit concerned that you were using Gillette as earworm repellent.
But no, it was earworm replacement. Another earworm.
Yeah.
Of the two, I think I prefer I'm Just Ken.
Oh, yes. Easily.
Do you know Ryan Gosling has his own band?
Oh, does he really?
Does he?
Yeah, it's a duo, and they play a genre called Gothic Rock. They're called Dead Man's Bones.
Wow.
Okay. Well, we'll put that on the Infernal playlist for this episode.
I would say, Alex, I would agree with you that I'm Just Ken is preferable, but I would say a word of warning.
Mm-hmm.
When you've got past that I'm Just Ken, tell me another lyric, and if that lives in your head,
stick in your head.
For 4 days, you have I'm Just Ken, and then just a lyrical white noise.
So you just have one line. That's a bit tough because he's great at doing stuff, and then that's about it. The best bit in the whole song is the 80s breakdown where it's like, "Can you feel the Kenergy?" That bit's the best bit, but that's not an earworm bit, is it?
No. And so at least with Gillette, I had words instead of just a humming and a kind of a low drone of an appropriation of Ryan Gosling's singing voice of just murmuring until I'm Just Ken. And then at least then I was like, well, at least I know the lyrics of like the Gillette song.
Yeah.
The best a man can get.
Could you not like just improvised I'm Just Ken and I like cake. I sometimes read Take a Break. You know, like...
Hey, listen, maybe you should like talk to Mark Ronson and if there's a Barbie too.
Hey, I'm available, Mark, if you need me.
And let's face it, there's going to be a Barbie too.
Yeah, of course there's going to be a Barbie too. I don't know if he's going to like
You're not letting us in on your next project there, Luke, are you? Here we've got the writer of the famous serial killer drama to write Barbie. It's just the kind of move they do after Greta Gerwig, isn't it? You know,
I'll only write it if Pudsey can be in it.
Wouldn't that be something? The Pudsey and Barbie, it'd be like Deadpool and Wolverine.
Exactly.
Pudsey and Barbie. It sounds like Tracy from HR has finally found you a job to do. So, while I go and fetch the chit, Alex, can you recap Luke's Infernal playlist?
Yes, absolutely. A track that Luke is embarrassed he used to like is Hazard by Richard Marx. A track universally adored that Luke cannot stand, Around the World by Daft Punk. A track that brings back bad memories, Chandelier by the wonderful Sia. A track that Luke hates by an artist he loves is Dreams by Fleetwood Mac. And a track... once stuck in Luke's head, he can never get out until the other one comes in, is Gillette from Tom Grennan, and I'm Just Ken by Ryan Gosling. So, Luke, which of these 5 songs would you least like to hear on repeat? So which one is the absolutely most hellish?
Daft Punk, Around the World.
Okay, so we'll play you out with that. Tracy says that you will be working in our Shakespeare for Schools department. And it won't be the good Shakespeare. It'll be Love's Labour's Lost and The Merry Wives of Windsor. It'll be the ones that not even adults can really understand very well. Nobody likes.
I was going to say Coriolanus. I have no idea about Shakespeare, Dan, so I presume you've made a very funny joke.
I mean, well, funny jokes and Shakespeare are always kind of relative. People only laugh when they pretend that they've understood them.
There we go. I'll do that.
So all Shakespeare jokes really are just not funny. So it kind of worked in that way, didn't it?
Yeah.
There's always a moment when you watch Shakespeare and there's obviously a bawdy joke, and the actor always grabs their crotch to let the audience know that it's let the audience know that Shakespeare has given you a dick joke, and then you laugh along like, oh, that was about his penis.
Yes, that is exactly it. It's exactly it. Okay, so your Infernal playlist is now set in stone. And you'll be cursed to drag it around with you wherever you go. Before you go off to your new afterlife of abject misery, is there anything you can tell our listeners about? What have you got coming up? Is there anything they should look out for?
I've got a few things in development. I'm currently doing a project, another true crime. This one, which is about, although very different to the Nilsen project, about Derek Bentley, who was.
Recognise that name.
Let him have it. Yeah, let him have it. It's about his sister's campaign to get his name exonerated for a crime he did not commit and should not have hanged for. And it's an amazing story about her and her role in abolishing the death penalty in this country, and what she managed to do with her campaigning and the saving of lives. She's an amazing woman, and she's an inspiration to everyone, really. I think she should be, and she should have a TV show that's about her and the family. Maria Bentley, who's her daughter, has been incredible in kind of allowing us to tell her mum's story.
Oh, that's amazing. So do you know when that might be coming out?
We're in the development stage at the moment. We're at script stage at the moment, so we're just writing it at the moment. So hopefully soon.
Brilliant. Okay, well, we'll look out for it. Thank you very much, Luke Neal. Thank you. And now, go to hell. Hellish was written and presented by me, Daniel Whelan, and the guy who made up that nonsense about spiral staircases and castles being there to foil people who are right-handed, Alex Gale. You can support the show on patreon.com/hellishpod. Find us on social media at hellishpod, apart from Instagram where it's hellish_pod. You can listen to all of Luke's choices and our ongoing Ultimate Infernal playlist, bringing everyone's choices together at Hellishpod on Spotify. Until next time, damn you all to hell.